Okay, go on.
My topic is esports, so I'm going to be talking about terminology matters, defining the esport athlete. Next slide. So the background for this article was, it was stating that esports has shown an increase of interest in participating, spectating, and academic perspectives. And then it was like, is esport considered a sport? So by definition, there are several definitions, but for this article, they wanted to distinguish between individuals who play various esport titles as a form of leisure compared to competitive play. One definition from the article was that they viewed esport, the casual, organized playing of competitive computer games, facilitating through in-game ranking system or organized competitions. Esport is generally meets the criteria for different definition. It states that esport and sports are like similar, but they play through different mediums. Because both are organized team sports and there's a level of competition and counter hours of training. And then for this article, they want to see clarity between which term of athlete and player used regarding individuals who participate within the vast esports ecosystem. So it's like they interchange the definition of calling someone an athlete and calling them a player. So that's kind of what the article talks about. So the next slide is some key terminology that is used. So some terms are like esport player, gamer, video game player, and then for the more formal categories, it's elite e-athletes or esports, professional video gamers, and competitive esports player. And then these terminologies depend on the rankings of how your skills are. So starting from the bottom is basically the first part, and the second part is more higher up of the skill level that you have. So the next slide is just a little table showing you the different terminology used for different disciplines. So like business, for example, they use video game players as a terminology, or esport athletes or players. Injury and health, they say esports competitors, professional players, esport players, athletes, that kind of thing. For coaching, they say esport players or esport athletes, so it just kind of depends on what criteria you're looking at to determine what terminology they will be using. And then the middle category is just the different papers that they got these terminologies from that are used. Says I will talk about the Trotter study at one point. So they use esport athletes or e-athletes. They define e-athletes as those who play an esport and have an official ranking for that esport. The next slide is current research. So academic domains are starting to pay more attention to esports because, you know, when COVID happened, sports kind of got cut off for a while, so esports became a thing that people started to do more of. So people play it for recreational use, just to play it. And in the article, it says that for the terminology and stuff, they want a clear understanding of how we define those who play video games, more of like a targeted research and comparison. So the example would be like in terms of health behavior, like smoking, drinking, as well as other characteristics. And then it also says they use an example of League of Legends or LOL, whatever that is. I don't know esports, so don't ask me. So the lowest level is Iron and the highest level is Challenger. And then most players are based between silver and gold, which is like 1% of the participants who do these. I don't really know what any of that means, so that's just what I'm letting you know. Video games is not my thing. But anyways, so the range of terminology in the table above, that just shows you the different ways that they call esport athletes or esport players. So that's what's being used in current literature today. And the fields also tells you different terminology as well, and that just helps you understand it more. For the next slide, it's for technique of terminology. Athletes, players, and competitors are being interchanged This further highlights the need for clarity within the terminology, with considerations taken to define what is considered aligned to an esport athlete and discussing the casual gamer. With this, they use 16 different articles and only 4 define their population of what terminology is used. So right now, there needs to be a better understanding of different directions of where they want to take this with terminology, since there are different terms that you can use between someone who plays an actual sport and someone who plays esports. So for the next slide, it is just a discussion. It says that esport athlete should be used similarly to the umbrella term athlete, broadly referring to the players of all types of sports. Players can be used when they have a certain sport title, so esport title, so if you're at the bottom, you could be considered a player, and then when you move up, you're considered an athlete, something like that. Terminology will help differentiate between esport research and video game research. A study by Trotter in 2020 compared health and physical behaviors of esport athletes. So for future research, it could compare esport athletes with gamers, athletes, or values. Similarly, this study explored the efficacy of a school-based esport program. Future studies could examine how esport athletes would benefit from esport-specific interventions to enhance health behaviors. This study was to discuss various terms in academic research. However, due to the infancy of the esports industry and esports research, no guidelines exist to help between eliteness, competitive standards, and so on, which leads to the generalized of populations within the ranking system. And further research still needs to be required so we can understand appropriate objectives. So basically, the whole study was just talking about the different terminology used within esport and then other sports as well. And then my references is the last slide.
All right, so before I stop the recording, LOL stands for League of Legends, which is a multiplayer online battle arena, or MOBA.
LOL.
LOL.
That's what it's.
LOL.
That's weird.